by JetBrains. I got to admit, it's great to be back on webinars. It's been a little bit of a time. Hi, I'm Paul Everett, JetBrains Developer Advocate. I'll be your host. The topic for today's webinar is WebStorm's Power User Manual. Oh, gosh, we get so many requests for this kind of content, and I'm pleased to introduce the gurus that will be presenting today, which means doing my work for me. Margaux Flores is a front-end software engineer based in Japan, which means, Margaux, I think you're like 400 time zones ahead of me. Thank you for staying up late and doing this with us. You're currently working for Mercari?
Yes, yes, you're correct. It's actually one of Japan's like major e-commerce companies, but I'm currently working for their NFT division because we're trying to venture into new things, so it's really fun.
You're also doing, because you're not busy enough, and I think you said you're pushing a software update on Monday. You're also doing a game startup, and you're also working on blockchain. Is that right?
Yes, correct. So basically, I work with NFTs at Mercari, but I'm also doing this game startup with my friend, and it's basically a fight with your code kind of concept. So like you code a robot and then you fight with other people's coded robots. So it's an interesting concept. So both of my jobs, I mean, it's just amazing. And I rely on WebStorm for me to be able to do all of that magic.
Before the next question, hey, audience, raise your hand if you fight with your code. Yes, I think, Margaux, you're on to something. Which is more exciting, the blockchain side or the game side or the startup side?
So, actually, they're both really fun. So right now, in Mercoin, Mercari NFT, we partnered up with one of Japan's major baseball leagues. So we're producing amazing, cool baseball moments for baseball fans here because baseball is really big here in Japan. I'm actually coming to see a baseball match at the end of this month to capture more of those cool moments that we can store as NFTs for the fans. Yeah.
All right, Margaux, you have a hello from Serbia in the chat as well. So got people all over the place saying hi.
Hi. So I guess I'm not the only one from another time zone.
Possibly. Yeah. Hey, also joining us in this kind of tag team power user format, Dave Stewart. Dave is a London-based web developer with 20 years of experience in full stack. Dave, you and me, man. The oldsters, with a focus on JavaScript, TypeScript, and open source. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. You were the subject of an interview on our blog last year, I believe. And a couple of months ago, you did some WebStorm shortcuts on your blog.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, WebStorm is my sort of tool of choice. And I'm adding another article today called An Intro to WebStorm's Most Powerful Features, which will run it alongside this webinar. And hopefully people can pick the ones they want to see, and maybe I can demo those.
Hey, let's do a spoiler. What's the most powerful feature?
Oh, refactoring.
All right. Good.
Yes,
Ooh,
I agree with that. Yeah.
You're going to cover some of that today?
Yeah.
All right. That's one that...
There's actually so many fun features to cover. I may or may not. Let's see.
And I know you and Margaux also kind of had a meeting about coordinating on all this. So let's go ahead and switch to today's webinar, have a little bit of fun over to the slides. We'd like to make this webinar as live and conversational as possible, as you can see already. Remember, we're here to entertain you, but you're here to entertain us as well. So participate over in chat and give us some stuff to bring to Margaux and Dave. If you have any questions or problems during the webinar, feel free to ask them at any time using the chat. We are in YouTube and we are in Twitch. I never thought I would be in Twitch, but I am. We'll have a few pauses in the webinar where Margaux, Dave, and I will answer your questions, but also we, the WebStorm team, will answer questions right there in the chat. I've been chatting a little bit. You'll see me looking over occasionally and maybe typing a little bit. That's not because I'm answering Slack. It's because I'm talking with you. But please feel free to ask your questions. Don't wait until the end of the talk. Usually the most common question is this webinar being recorded? We are currently recording. The recording will be available in YouTube basically immediately. And 3 minutes from now, someone in chat will ask, is this being recorded? Happens every time. Watch for it. Okay, now that, I'll go back. Now that we're all set, we got all the ground rules, you know about engaging with us. Let's begin with our first section of the presentation. We got it organized into a couple of sections. Dave, I think we will start with you. So let's get Dave's screen up. First section is kind of customization and little power user tips and tricks on, Dave, how you get your WebStorm set up.
Right, good question. Okay, so I'm just checking out my article at the same time where I've written everything. You know what? My setup is, I think, fairly typical. I just use the tool windows. I like to make sure I have certain things in certain places. So, for example, I normally have the terminal up here. I have the notifications down there. This is WebStorm right now. I've been on PhpStorm, so it might not be set up perfectly. And then I'll normally have something like, if I run scripts, so I might do a run dev or something like that. And then I'll have this run up here as well. And then I can see my terminal. So I can type commands in, and then I can run scripts up here. And it's just all nice and easy to see. I'll normally have my project window on the left here. That makes it super easy to actually open files. And then that will normally save them the whole time. And normally, because we're presenting now, obviously this is a lot more zoomed in. But normally this will be much easier to see, and there'll be more space on the screen. Everything okay?
Yep, everything's all right. Okay, let's talk a little bit with Margaux. I believe you have a contrarian opinion on customization. Is that right?
Yes, I do, actually. And this is actually the reason why I am now using WebStorm as my primary driver for my daily working.
Yep.
So the reason why I switched to WebStorm is that I didn't have to touch the settings at all and configure it to my liking. But actually, I for starters, have actually cycled through different IDEs. So I started out with Dreamweaver back in the days of yore when we used to do websites out of PSDs. And then I've also tried Sublime Text, Atom, and then finally settled with Visual Studio Code, which I loved. I mean, it's great. But a friend introduced me to WebStorm, and then I tried it out of spite, actually. So one is because I was a bit hoity-toity against anything else besides Visual Studio Code. And then I went to the website of WebStorm, and it said smart as JavaScript IDE. And I'm like, hold my beer, let me prove you wrong. But you know what happened? WebStorm was like, hold our beer, and we'll prove you wrong. So yeah, basically from the day that I have installed WebStorm, and it's been 30 years now since I started using WebStorm, I think I only changed the font and the theme, and then just added file templates, which I'll get to at the later section of this webinar. But yeah, that's the reason why I love WebStorm. It just works. It just works out of the box. So one of the things that I have to say to everyone who's starting out with WebStorm is that before you start with WebStorm, just ignore everything. I know like the whole UI could be overwhelming, but if you fall into that configuration rabbit hole, you're just going to frustrate yourself, and then you're never going to discover the magic of WebStorm. So what I'm going to say is just start coding and let WebStorm do its magic, because trust me, it is the smartest JavaScript IDE ever. And then just tweak your configurations as you go. Google your questions. You'll probably find the answers. So yeah, that's basically what I have to say when it comes to my customization process of WebStorm.
I think I'm mostly like you, Margaux. I leave it mostly the way it is out of the box, partially because I spend 110% of my adult life making videos about the product. and I'm under a strict mandate to use it mostly out of the box. But when I'm doing my own coding, I turn off tabs. I turn off most of the Chrome. I'm
Yeah.
a man of a certain age. I make the fonts bigger. Got to do what you got to do. But I don't like install custom themes, a lot of plugins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm also too lazy to do it. So that's probably
Sure.
not just a tip. I'm just lazy.
You configure it like, what was that I did? How do I put it back? I don't remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, on your Dreamweaver thing, let's do it a question for the audience. Name this trivia contest. Name the original creator. What company was the original creator of Dreamweaver? Margaux, if you know, don't answer. Let them answer. Dave, question for you. We answered in the chat, but I want you to kind of give your life experience on this. The WebStorm and PhpStorm, is it the same? Is it behind? Do they really have, does PhpStorm really have WebStorm?
Yeah, I think they pretty much have parity. I actually have swapped over to WebStorm only in the last couple of weeks. I don't really write PHP anymore, and I figured I'm doing a bit of a sort of life audit, so I decided to use WebStorm. But yeah, pretty much everything you get in WebStorm, you get in PhpStorm. I think it's even on the documentation page that the features get released at the same time. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just a plugin, and we use the same plugin that PhpStorm uses, and vice versa. This is a couple more comments from Germany about Material UI. That is a popular one inside of JetBrains. There's a comment that I thought was kind of cool, and I'll let both of you comment on it. I used WebStorm for the first time more than 10 years ago. This is from Vladislav, sorry. And then used it professionally for about 6 years. I'm still here. What did I do wrong with my life? So I think from our perspective, you're making the correct decisions, and we're giving you some power user tips to get more out of it. That's certainly a fun point to get started with. And for all of this about customizing and power user and stuff like that, we really enjoy talking about this because we want you to be a badass. We want you to learn to use the tools so that you can focus on the code. So with that in mind, let's go on to the next segment, probably the biggest segment, features. Some of the features that you're using the most, productivity tips for using them, whether it's with the IDE or frameworks or something, any favorite shortcuts. And so, Margaux, if it's okay, we will switch to your screen and start with you.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm not big on customization and like big stuff. I like to keep things simple. So to me, my favorite features are like the small little things in WebStorm. So first of all, when you hover on something in WebStorm, be it an HTML element or like a view directive, it has this like pop-up that shows you a quick definition and then links you to the official documentation, which is really useful for me because as a front-end engineer, I really value performance and accessibility. So I always have to check if I'm using a certain HTML element correct, like if I'm semantically right. So I really appreciate this feature. And my second favorite would be IntelliSense, but I like to call it IntelliSensei because it's just that smart. It's actually, this is the final nail in the coffin with my affair with WebStorm. And then I just can't get out of this relationship anymore. I'm just too dependent on it. So as you can see, I work a lot with TypeScript. So it's just so easy. And I can go to like, it's the smartest like go-to declaration or usage, especially when you're working in a large code base. So you can jump from like one definition to another because it's very important. Like, what is this element or like, what is this type that I used here? So that's one of the things that I love about it. It's just so smart. And the second thing is to-dos. So actually, as we devs know, we like to delude ourselves by adding to-do comments all over our source code, knowing that we're never going to go back and refactor it. But when it comes to WebStorm, they actually have this like to-do tab underneath which lists down all of the to-dos. It just goes through your source code and lists down all of your to-dos. So it kind of is a to-do checklist. So you can finally really stick to your to-dos and refactor things that you need to refactor. I no longer have to delude myself with just adding a to-do comment. Next would be resolving merge conflicts. So I'm a command line kind of girl when it comes to Git. I don't like using GUI for Git. So I'm actually not very familiar with just to what extent WebStorm's version control system is. I mean, I assume it's great, but there is one feature that I rely on in WebStorm when it comes to Git, and that's resolving merge conflicts. That's because it has one of the most like intuitive process that I've ever seen in terms of resolving merge conflicts. So I'm just gonna speed forward this video. So there's actually a resolve conflict selection there, and you click on the file, and it shows you like this view of your changes, their changes, and the middle part is the result. So you can just like basically pick the parts that you want and then be able to resolve a merge conflict that way. It's so clean, and you don't have to like be so frustrated every time you have to resolve a merge conflict. And next would be component structures. So modern front-end development is all about components. We're in component hell. So I really appreciate this component view here. It's a bit small, so I'm just gonna ruin my keynote and make it bigger. So you can see there on the side that it basically gives you an element tree of like how your component is structured. So it's easier for you to go through your components because it's such a hassle to go through them. And next is file templates. So this is, actually, I'm going to make this bigger. I mean, I'm just going to delete the title and stuff. So this one I really love. So I'm a Vue.js developer. So there's different flavors on how you can write Vue. So for example, with me, I use .extends to do like Vue and TypeScript, but I also have tried writing it in Vue class component and Vue property decorator syntax. So this is where WebStorm's template feature comes in handy. So this is the .extends project that I have. And then I just set like a file template that looks something like this. So basically when I start, so this means that every time I just click on create Vue component and just add in the name, it just magically sets it up for me with that setup. And the next thing is that this is like a class component structure example that I have. And see, the thing is like with JetBrains WebStorm, you can basically do a per project configuration. So my file template for this is different. It's written in class component structure. So when I click create new component on this one, it's the same. It just adds that new Vue component with that structure that I set for that project. So I really love that feature. And there's only one plugin that I use, and it's CodeTime. So I love tracking analytics and stuff like that. I track my sleep because I like knowing numbers and knowing how I can improve things. And the cool thing about this plugin is that, I mean, it's code time tracking. So it basically tracks your coding time and then gives you like analytics during the day. Like, so I can figure out which time of day I'm the most productive. So then I can block that out from my work calendar because I know that I'm most productive during that time of the day. So that's my favorite plugin to use. And yeah, basically, I think that's it for me. Like I said, I keep things simple, and I just, with WebStorm, it just lets me really focus on just doing my job, doing what I love, which is coding, because it just handles everything else.
All right, some comments on that, and then some comments from the audience as well. First, I think this is cool. We have people from Serbia, India, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Slovakia, the Philippines, Portugal, and South Africa. Y'all pull in quite a crowd. We're going to have to invite you back regularly. I like this. On your first point about autocomplete, and this is something it's hard to sometimes notice, but we put a lot of work in the background. We try to decide what's the best list for you and put the most important thing at the top and try and leave out things that we think are unimportant. And so for you in the audience as well, if you have any suggestions for us, or if you feel like we're doing a good job of just showing you the right thing instead of a huge list of symbols, you know, if you like type URL, it's probably going to find that in a lot of places or something. The to-do tip that you had is really good. I do exactly the same thing as you, Margaux. Last year, I think we added support for multi-line to-dos. So you can have a comment with a to-do, and if the next line is indented, we'll just treat it as one long to-do. One of the things about what you showed in the merge conflicts is not only can you accept changes, you can actually type in one side or the other, and you get autocomplete. It's like you're in the editor there. So then a couple of comments. There was a question about enabling prettier by default, and thank you, Jahil, for answering that. And then we had a question about to do in libraries. You know, if you click on to do and you've installed React, which means you have 2000 node modules, there's probably some to-dos in that, and it winds up showing. But I believe you can set up scopes to limit it to look only in your project. Dave, before we go on to you for features, did you hear anything in what Margaux was talking about on autocomplete or merge or anything like that that you wanted to comment on?
Yeah, clearly autocomplete is incredible, as is navigating to declarations and uses and that sort of thing. But also, yeah, the merge conflict window is amazing. It's brilliant. You can just select stuff from either side and just build up the final file and then commit. So yeah, it's a really great piece of kit.
Yeah. All right, let's switch over to Dave's screen and let Dave show some of his features.
All right. So features, I guess it really depends on what you call a feature. Like everything's a feature, I suppose. One of the things I really love, I'm just going to jump in randomly here, saving this for the end. I write quite a lot of CLI tools, and it's quite nice to test those. Obviously, that's running in a node environment. So here we've got a test for something, one of my projects called Alias HQ. And I just want to double check inside this test what are going to be the values of the received and expected. So I can stick a breakpoint in, and then you'll see these little play icons on the side. I can right click this and I can say debug. So it tells me what test I'm running. You'll see the debugger console pop up here. Boom, there you go, it stopped. So if you're used to actually having a view DevTools in the browser, you can actually do exactly the same stuff here. You can see there's results of the received call to my plugin. You can also do things like, so let's say that we know that that's an object with keys. You can also, right in here, check stuff out, add values. There you go, there's my new value. So it's super useful if you are doing tests and actually you want to know what's coming through and see the value at the time. You can just run that. You can just run it as a debug. And it's also really useful if you've got something like an Express server down in npm. Let's pretend this was like a serve. You could just right click and you can just go debug serve, and then that will run your Express server. And then in your Express code, you can just add breakpoints, and then even API calls or anything like that, you can see the results as they come in. So what next do I really like? Features. You know what? I said earlier on, I thought refactoring was the most powerful thing. It definitely is, but actually I think the way how you can just do so much with the cursor in WebStorm is the thing which does it for me. So I'm just going to double click this received here. And I'm going to hit Control G. And in fact, I'm going to hit Escape. I'm going to take all this. I'm going to hit Control G, and I'm going to select everything in the file. And let's say I want to actually change the case. You can move the cursors around all bits, all carets. Do something like that. Or you could select that and you can copy it, and then you can move up, and then you can paste. So it's got multi-caret, edit, and copy and paste. And then there's other nice things. For example, like let's say you're in this parameter of this function here. If you hold down Option and go up, you can actually expand out. And then if you were to right-click on this, you could say, or go Control T. You can say introduce constant. So you can actually extract complicated bits of JavaScript into much. Actually, it's not going to work. Let's do this one. Control T. We'll go choose constant. Actually, it's not. This might not be a very good example. Let me see if I can do that. It's not working here, but you can essentially extract bits of code into sort of simpler code. So where you've got this stuff in line here, you can actually extract other more complicated bits and just get variables like that. Possibly enough talking by now. I can keep going if you want.
Let's talk about that one, and I'll come back to a couple of other things. On that one, the reason it's not a good fit for that is because you're in a test. But this is a pattern that what you just talked about as a feature is something, my God, I use it all the time. If I'm in a React component, and Margaux talked about components, it's funny, I recorded a video yesterday about my love of component-driven development. If you're in a React component, the natural thing is you write a bunch of JSX, and then you're like, that needs to be a subcomponent. That needs to be a presentation component. My gosh, WebStorm really makes that slick. First, you highlight the lines of JSX, you extract it to a component, and it inlines it in that file. And you can say, I want it as a functional component or a class component. And then you go to that thing and say, single responsibility principle, it needs to be in its own file. And you can extract it, you can move it to a file, and it will leave behind the imports and then go fix all of your code. I mean, it's pretty slick. The one thing, first, Dave, tests. Way to go, man. I'm very, very much a test first guy not because I like to eat my vegetables. I just find it much more rewarding to sit in the IDE than going over to Chrome, back to the IDE, over to Chrome, back to the IDE. And I can do what you did, which is set a debug breakpoint in my test. Stop right on the line and figure out what's going on. So with that, one of the things that I wish we had from extract was to also make a fake test for me. When I make a subcomponent and put it in a file, if WebStorm could be like, hey, I see you've got a test for the parent. Do you want a test created for this child? And I will make a confession to you. You really poked me on that multi-caret thing. Because there's 3 things in life that I've refused to learn: regular expressions, Hayes modem command set, and multi-caret.
Oh,
I know.
That's not regular expressions.
I was like, why?
I know. I just make other people write them for me. It's embarrassing. But keep it a secret. Don't tell anybody that I said that.
Well, we can jump into regular expressions if you want. So we could do something like a replace.
You want to show up? Let's go back to Dave's screen, and if Dave wants to on the fly show the regular expression, which is pretty cool in WebStorm, right?
Say again?
Yeah.
WebStorm has a pretty good regular expression editor.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. So let's. I'm not sure if this would be the right file to do it, but let's just do it for fun. Let's pretend that we want to. Maybe we want to change this path or something. Maybe it's actually, do you know what? No, let's go to a different project. And which one's this? This is Maps Areas. This is my site. Let's pretend, for example, that we have, maybe we want to change media embed we want to change all these media things to something else. So if you go, oh, that's the wrong thing. Sorry, Command R, and then we could say media, and we could go just put on regular expressions there, and that's saying get everything after media with that, and then we can go. Let's say we're going to call it image, and I can go $1. And you'll see there, it actually tells you each time what the replacement is. So the $1 basically means take that first capture. So it's really nice. When you're sort of stepping through, you can actually see what's going to get put in before you do it. So if I like it, I can just go replace, replace. I'm just going to undo that because it's going to break things. But yeah, it's really nice.
All right, Margaux, did you have anything you wanted to comment on what Dave was showing?
Actually, yes, the regular expression thing is very cool on WebStorm, but I was reminded of something when Dave was teaching us how to do debugging tests on the fly. So he opened up a Scratch file. So that's one of my most favorite features of WebStorm, is the ability to create a file without creating it in your project, just so that you can store code snippets. So I use it a lot when I refactor, where like I want to copy all of this like code and save it as in the Scratch file, but I'm gonna start the code from like 0 because I want a clean slate, but I want to see the references to the old code. So that's how I use Scratch files in WebStorm. So that's also a great feature that I can't live without.
For me, there are two things about Scratch files that seal the deal. One, they're shared across all projects, and you can browse them in the Project Explorer. And two, a lot of times I'm like, oh, I want to do something, and I go to the root of my project and do foo.py or foo.js. And then it says, do you want to add this to Git? And I'm like, oh, no, I don't. And that's where you know that you want a Scratch file, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was actually teaching Dave the other day though, because you mentioned that Scratch files are like they're shareable like across projects. So when Dave and I were sharing like our WebStorm stuff, he had like a lot of Scratch files, and I'm like, how do you manage to handle all of that? Because I keep mine clean. When I'm done with them, I delete them because, like you said, you'll see it everywhere. So he has a lot.
Yeah, well, interesting. Okay, so I can definitely add a few fun things about Scratch files. So if I share my screen.
All right, let's go back to Dave's screen. Thanks.
Right. So actually, let's see. So you can actually see all the scratches. So they're all down here. Now it's possible. Okay, I've got a few. Like I said, I've only switched to WebStorm a few days ago, but my PhpStorm will have like hundreds and hundreds. So if you do a search, so Command-Shift-F. And in fact, let me just cheat. I'm just going to look in the Scratch file, see what we got. Okay, cool. Here we go. So I've got dave@dave.com. Now, I'm just going to do a search, and I'm going to search for dave@dave.com, and it's not coming up. However, if I switch to scope and then put all places, this is something called scope. So you can actually limit your searching, and you can also limit your folder tree using scopes. In fact, I'll do that again now. So let's limit my folder tree to open files. It's taking a sec. Don't know why I've only got 4 open files, but there you go. So this is really nice if you're working on a set of files and maybe they're spread out throughout the whole tree. So if I go back to project and maybe I open something up from here, and I open something up from down there, and then I go back to open files. That's really nice. So if you are using something like a full stack framework and you've got let's say you've got your controllers and you've got your models and you actually want to see stuff from both, it's really nice to do things like that. But let's jump back to Scratch files. So I've done my search, Dave@Dave. Here's my Scratch file. In fact, another little feature here, this is one of my favorite things about WebStorm and PhpStorm, is you can edit directly in the find window. So rather than actually having to sort of click through lots of files and open up each one, let's say you've got 5 or 6 results there, you can literally just go, in fact, I'm going to open up this file as well so we can see it at the same time. I'll just pretend I've done my find. So let's say I want to change this to too old. You can see I'm editing in the result window, and it's updating immediately in the actual file, and this works everywhere. Right, back to Scratch files. So I found the file. I'm doing my thing. You can actually run Scratch files. So let's go const result equals. And here's another little thing. This is called postfix completion. I'm going to go result.log. I'm going to hit tab, and I actually put console log. Now, this thing here that you can see here, this is something called Quokka, which I'll show in a moment. And this is the plugin which actually lets you get little comments in your Scratch files. But right now, this is built into PhpStorm. Sorry, WebStorm. You can just run. So I can run this Scratch file, and you'll see the results directly in there. And this is really nice. Let's say if you've got, if you're writing a service or a utility in your main app, you probably don't want to actually have to sort of put that code into production. So you can just open up a Scratch file. You can build like a little thing like here. So for example, this little thing here, this might be, I don't know, function extract or something. And I'm just going to move that in. So that was shift command up and down. That moves entire blocks. And then I can go, let's say I'm going to return that. So I'm going to go return. Maybe I'm going to put input there. I could go console log extract results. Oh, sorry, extract. My mistake. Input, and there you go. So that's just a few tools that you can see just around, literally just playing with code and just writing stuff quickly. I'll also show the Quokka window. So this is a plugin by, I think it's an Australian team. But it's really nice because you can do things like, if I take that away, you'll see that has disappeared. But if I go / question mark, I think this is because I've got the community version. On my other install, I've got the commercial version. But you can get all these sort of, as you can see, sort of like live comments directly in your code. So if you didn't have that open, it's really nice just to see what the actual variable is. So for example, if I put input, there you go. You can see what the input is, and you can see what the result is. That's enough for me for that bit.
That was actually 3 or 4 great tips in one, including, editing directly in the find, and you get autocomplete and all that. Some things coming in that I wanted to talk with the two of you about.
I will say in regards to that is literally, when you've got WebStorm, this is your experience of it. You are literally using feature after feature after feature after feature. And they are all at your fingertips all the time. It's incredible.
And these are things that not just save you time, but let you get the better right answer first and not make a mistake. Like things like autocomplete. Why type it out when it will autocomplete the correct spelling?
Yeah.
Okay. All three of us, we've overlooked the killer feature. And this comes in from Mark. Local history. Do you ever use it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Margaux, I'll let you go first. Do you want to sing a song of praise?
Yeah. So normally us devs, we feel safe because we have Git, or maybe other people with like Mercurial or something like that. But sometimes you just mess up. We're humans too, so you mess up. But WebStorm has this. I haven't used it in a long while though, so I don't know.
I can probably show it right now on this Scratch file if you like.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes,
good.
please.
Let's go back to Dave's screen.
No
All
worries.
right, go ahead. Here's Dave.
So yeah, so there's I think there's 2 kinds of history in WebStorm. You've got your Git history. So if I was to right click and go down to actually, I don't know if Git's going to work. Probably won't get the pop-up here because this is a Scratch file, so it's not actually in version control.
Right.
But if I right click and I go local history and I go show history, you'll be able to see, in theory, all the changes I made right back to the start of this file. Great new Scratch file. So yeah, that's the times. I don't use it that much, but it's really cool to know that it's there. I think when you close WebStorm, it gets cleared. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It has some kind of algorithm to keep the right amount and then prune things. But a couple of comments on that. It will save you from deleting a file. You can local history on a folder, and it will show you a file you deleted. And you can do Git history, but Git won't save you for a catastrophic mistake in between commits.
Yeah.
So if you haven't committed in 3 or 4 days, and then Shill X in chat mentioned a power feature for local history, which is labels. So you can kind of put the equivalent of a checkpoint somewhere in your local history, almost like a commit.
Well, I am really happy that I've learned something.
Yes. I was just going to say, we're supposed to be the one imparting wisdom here, but we're learning from our audience. So this is a great experience. Yeah.
So one that came in is about multi-line search. I believe the answer for this is one. I'll put number 4 on the list of things I should know, but I don't. Structural search. Do either of you use that really, really advanced feature in WebStorm?
I found out about it today. So when I was compiling the article, which I hope you've shared the link to, it's on my Twitter if people want to see it as well, is I saw this structural search and I thought, what's structural search? So I haven't used it, but I am aware of it.
Yeah, we have a great video from Trisha G. It's for Java, but it explains the why. It's like search where you can then do actions based on the information and the context of this blah, blah, magic, blah, blah. Mark, 2 things for you that came in related to testing. One, someone pointed out that you can Control R to rerun tests. But one of the really nice things is you can just walk up to the gutter and run just one test and then rerun it, or debug just one test. Now, the question for you and Margaux as well, what test frameworks does WebStorm support, and what do you use for test frameworks? Margaux, actually, I'll go with you. What have you used over the years for test runners?
So actually, for util test, unit test, for unit tests, our team at Mercury uses Jest.
Yes.
But for our integration tests, we actually rely on Cypress a lot. So we mock API responses.
Okay.
So actually, that's what I've been doing at work earlier today. I was doing integration tests, but I love writing them. And our team loves, we love performance and just constantly improving the product. So we are really focused on writing and getting test coverage to like a higher level. So I actually wish WebStorm had more support for Cypress because we use Cypress a lot. So
hey, WebStorm, if you're out there listening, better Cypress. How has Cypress performance been for you? Do you have any test suites that are too big to run fast enough?
Yes. So actually, because our company is a really big company, we have products that have like we have a fintech we have a fintech product, and that's the team that I usually work with, and it's a big code base that's just separate into like different microservices and like apps. So we have a lot of tests to run, and we're trying to solve it in the team now, like how we can make the tests run faster, because it takes a lot of time when you try to deploy something. So yeah, we use Cypress a lot, but it takes a lot of time, and hopefully maybe WebStorm, once we get better Cypress support, it'll help us at work.
We have a point in from Kyle about run failed tests only for Karma and Jasmine. Dave, do you happen to use that feature, and what test frameworks are you using?
So I generally tend to use Jest these days. I find with testing, because there's it's sort of reasonably complicated when you first come to it. It's got an abstract concept. So for me, I think I just got my head around Jest, and I was happy. And I think Jest's own command line tool actually will sort of rerun tests on change anyway. But then in the actual tool itself, so if you want to swap back again, in the actual, so I often will just run my tests here. So maybe I will go, let's fail a test. So I'm just going to save that. And I'm going to, I don't know, where's my watch? Oh, I should be watching. I don't know why it's not watching. No, I'm just going to run that. That'll go through all tests, and that should obviously break. And again, because we're presenting, this is like really huge, but you know, it's a lot more manageable when it's on your your screen at home with normal font size. So, oh, that's interesting. I don't know. I haven't looked at this project for a while, but normally I think with Jest, it gives you options. You can just, I think if it's watching it, it would rerun automatically.
Yeah, you're running it as an NPM script. If you click in the gutter, you'll get the test tool window.
Yeah, well, I think that it should be open anyway. I think, where is it? Actually, where is it?
It's under, if you, let's see your Mac. So if you do Alt-4 to bring up run.
I think you can just click on that
Or
play
Command
button
4.
on the side.
Sorry, say again, Margaux?
I think you can just click on that green button, like next to the line numbers.
Yeah, in the gutter.
Will that actually show
Just
me
click
the
run. And it runs the test.
Yeah, I think you can press the buttons up here as well.
Yep. But this is running it instead of the NPM tool window. It's running it in the test tool window.
Okay, yeah. Let me fail that test again. So let me just go put one in there, and I'll just go run. So. Where is it? There's our failed test. So yeah, I think you can just. So I don't actually know how to make that test run again from this window.
You can click the button on the left that's run failed tests.
That one there. Yeah, there you go.
And that's the one that I believe was being discussed in chat.
Yeah, I don't know whether that watches or not.
You can fix that by editing the run config and putting -- watch on it.
Yeah, cool. Nice one. Okay, that's enough for me.
Okay, we'll move on a little bit. Margaux, there's something I wanted to ask you about. You had a tweet a little bit about a battle cry, and we're going to post that tweet in chat. I'm just curious the backstory on that.
Okay, so actually, with my current company, it's the first time in my career that I've been a part of a front-end team. Up until last year, I've always been a lone front-end engineer. I've been in companies, but I was always like the only front-end engineer. So with WebStorm, I really found like a second team member and always like that's kind of like my other half. So when I have to go into like a coding battle at work, my battle cry is WebStorm, because I know they got my back.
Yeah, right.
That's my battle cry.
Right. Hey, let's jump into the next segment, and we're doing okay on time, but we'll make that the last segment. You can talk about plugins or miscellaneous, any other thing. We'll combine those two. Margaux, do you still have stuff that you have in your presentation that you want to cover on this?
So like honestly, in preparing for this webinar, I asked around my team members and who's using JetBrains, like any JetBrains IDE, if they can give like tips that I can impart to other users. But everybody's response is like, we don't use plugins and customize anything because JetBrains IDE just like everything.
Sure.
That's why. Yeah. So all I have to say, I guess, in closing on my end is that it lives up to its promises when it says like it's like, for example, in WebStorm's case, it's the smartest JavaScript IDE. It proved me wrong, and I've never been happier in my life to be proved wrong. So like I mentioned multiple times earlier, it's that it just makes you like focus on coding, which is what I really love, instead of worrying about how to configure or set my IDE to behave like the way I want it to, or like how to for it to format my code. But because WebStorms handle all of that and I don't have to configure anything else, I just get to really focus on making amazing stuff for our users. So yeah, that's what I'm thankful for in in WebStorm. And all I ask is, can we get more Cypress support?
It's a small ask, right?
I'm
But
begging
I'm
you
with
guys.
you on that. We talk a lot about positioning, product positioning, and stuff like that. And we try to appeal to the people that want a out of the box, ready to go, supported configuration so they can jump straight into coding instead of, I want to tinker with my tool. And so I'm glad that you appreciate that. And I find myself in the same spot. I feel really happy when I get into the flow and I'm not thinking about the tool. And Dave, actually testing is a big thing about that. I put the code on the left, the test on the right, the test runner at the bottom. And that's my signal that I'm in a happy spot. I'm working slowly, methodically, and the tool reformats my code. The tool generates my import and removes my unused imports and all that stuff. And I don't have to think about that. So Dave, do you want to comment on anything Margaux said? And then you can, if you want to, we can switch to your screen and do some final miscellaneous or plugin things.
Yeah, no worries. Actually, I was just tinkering around with some stuff to show. So Margaux, sorry, I missed the thrust of what you said.
No, it was it was the same thing. I like that it doesn't make me think about the focus is out of my IDE. I just get to do coding because JetBrains, WebStorm all of JetBrains IDE does that. So actually also use Writer because I do a little bit of C# coding. And I'm so thankful for Writer because I really hate Visual Studio. I'm so sorry, but it's a hot mess for me. So I'm so glad that there's an alternative in JetBrains, which is Writer, and it's super amazing. So it did the same thing to me, where like my focus is not in configuring my IDE. I just code. And I think that's why Dave and I have time to do tests.
Hey, one quick comment on Ryder. That is a great team at JetBrains. They've been doing a lot of innovative stuff. They're the ones that brought us Gateway. And they're really proud of the big jump in performance you get when you switch to our IDE for .NET development. So I'll share that with them. Dave, do you have any closing stuff you want to show on plugins or miscellaneous?
I do. I've actually just been through my list and I'm really surprised and pleased we've actually covered quite a lot of it. But there's a few things left which I haven't covered. So if you share my screen again, this is the killer feature which I think people don't know about: smart keys. Smart keys is what makes WebStorm, in my opinion.
Hey, before you go, we'll do a poll. Audience, how many of you know what the hell he's talking about? All right, Dave, continue.
Fine. Smart keys is like magic. When you press a key, the key just doesn't do the one thing the key's supposed to do, like type bracket. There's all these kind of like intelligence behind it, which basically works out what you're trying to do and then does extra stuff for you. So for example, insert paired brackets. I'll show you that in a minute. HTML, CSS. So one of the ones I like is it inserts quotes for attributes. This takes a little bit of getting used to. If you change one tag, it will change the other tag. In JavaScript, rather than typing the sort of fairly verbose template string interpolation placeholders, you just type $. And yeah, so let me jump in and show some of that. So for example, here's a div tag. I might change this to, I don't know, an aside or something. You'll see that one updated there. But actually, if I type div there, that works as well. Let's say I want to add an attribute. I don't know, let's say it's an area role or something. And I hit tab, I'm straight in to the quotations. There's no pressing equals, there's no writing two quotes and then doing this. And obviously you've got your sort of autocomplete as well. So let's take, I don't know, let's do class, for example. So if I go class and I type equals, see, straight in. None of this having to press a quote and whatever, and I can just pick the one I want and I'm done. Let's have a look at pairing brackets and things like that. So if I was to go, let me just do a function, I'm going to call it, it's not view3, I'm going to call it setup though. If I was to go const, I don't know, value equals, and I do a quote, puts the other quote in automatically. But let's say I need to do something like, let's say I was doing a destructure, for example, and that was actually 1, 2, 3. I can select value. I'm going to go option up, and then rather than going to one end, then going to the other end, I'm just going to hit the left bracket, and it does the right bracket automatically around selection. And it's all this sort of stuff, which is just like, it just makes coding so easy. It's really, really nice. Let me see what else I've got on my list of things. Oh yeah, for example, I think there was one about template strings there. So if I was to go const template equals, and I do a backtick, and then I do the dollar. Oh, actually didn't do it. Why didn't it? Oh, it's because I cancelled out. Sorry, let me just go. So I'll just put that one back on, and I just do a dollar straight in. So I might go, let's put a value in there. That's another thing I really like about this. If a variable's not used, it's gray. If it is used, it's it's the color of the variable. Maybe let's do something like automatic imports are probably one of the most satisfying things about WebStorm. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think VS Code does it yet. So let's have a look. So I might go const test equals, and I can't remember actually what I've got in here, but let's go. What project am I in? Data Stewart. I think I got wrap. I'm looking my utils, and utils I've got assert. So I'm just going to go assert. I'm going to hit tab. Oh, sorry, that's a bad one because I was probably thinking that's a node assert. What have I got? I've got merge. So I'm going to go merge, and then it's not quite getting it. Oh, why isn't it getting it?
You might have already imported it.
No, I think it's just taking a sec just to think about it. There you go. So it has inserted merge for me. And then I can do P, and it tells me what's in there. So it's just all this sort of stuff. I don't have to, go upstairs or go up to the top and type merge first and la 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 la. So, do you know what?
And then you go back, and by then you forgot what you were typing.
Yeah, should we just do a quick refactor as well, just for the fun of that? So I'm just.
All right, we got time for that.
Say again.
We got time for that, but that'll be the last.
All right. So I'm going to split this one down. So we've now got merge there. I'm going to go back to site footer, and I'm going to go Control T on merge, and I'm going to move it. So where's move? Am I going blind? It's because it's sorry, it's because this one isn't exported. So let me go. I think it's because it gets used on the server side. So let me just go export. I think that should work. I'll just remove it from there. I should, in theory, be able to move this now. So if I go Control T, there we go. Move has come up. So if I now move this, and I'm going to move it to, let's pick another file. Actually, let's move it to a completely different folder. Let's move it to, actually, no, not that one. Oh, okay, just for argument's sake, let's move it to number. If that was a different directory entirely, this would work. So if I go refactor, there you go. That's updated, and it's put it into number. So it's all this sort of stuff. You don't have to sort of mess around in folders, and if you're the sort of person who refactors by going find merge, and then you sort of have to sort of do all that, you're really on a sort of a hiding to nowhere. So yeah, it's this sort of stuff which makes it fun.
Yeah, and then I don't want to move it because I will forget the 7 places where I imported it, and it'll be broken, and I'll be mad. But WebStorm knows where you imported it. WebStorm
knows more than I do about the stuff I program myself.
And then if you do the move and you're like, that was dumb, Command Z will undo the entire thing.
Yeah,
including the Git
redo it.
registrations.
Then you can undo it.
Yeah.
Then you can redo it. Oh, the fun I have.
Hey, we'll wrap up there and come back to us on screen. One thing that I will just mention and not show it. Mark mentioned HTTP file support. So if you're someone that does Postman for your REST requests, you don't have to. You can stay in the IDE and edit these files with a domain-specific language that will issue requests and look at responses, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. 100%.
All right, I think we can switch off of Dave's screen, come back to us. And before we wrap up, because this has been a lot of fun hanging out with the two of you, Margaux, we'll start with you. What's the next big, interesting topic that's on your radar, unrelated to WebStorm?
I'm very excited to do the Fight with Your Code project. So I'm going to do a lot of development on WebStorm for that. So if you guys follow me on Twitter, I'll let you guys know when you release the first release for that. And on top of that, actually, I really want to do more like testing. So we're a very like test-driven front-end team over at Mercati, which is why again I'm asking WebStorm Cypress, please.
Here's what we should do: have you come on for a Cypress webinar, and then we'll have to fix everything before you come on.
That would be great. I think I would have a lot of resource to share on that because my team and I have a really great like structure on how we do like Cypress integration tests.
All right.
So yeah, let's.
All right. Now that you have Sasha and me as contacts, now you know who to poke about that, right?
Yeah. So when Cypress support comes out, let's do how to do Cypress the WebStorm way kind of webinar.
Right. That's a good title.
Yeah.
Dave, you got anything that's out there that is capturing your imagination?
Well, I've just joined a new company. They're called Metalink. They're in the Web3 and NFT space. So it's a sort of kind of all-in type thing. We're going to be working with Vue 3 and Windy CSS and Ethereum and blockchain and Solidity and all these interesting things. It's still quite a small team at the moment. They've got like 5 mil funding. So yeah, it's going to be, I think they're going for the next round soon. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting, well, hopefully a year or more for me.
My younger self did 3 rounds of VC. It was quite a ride. I don't envy you.
Well, luckily I'm just writing code.
All right. Well, then good luck with the Vue 3. I hope that goes well. Okay. If you'd like, we'll go ahead and do the wrap up now. Thanks both of you for this really informative WebStorm's Power User Manual extravaganza. This has been a lot of fun. This has been a great format with all 3 of us talking about stuff at the same time. If you'd like to get more information on WebStorm, please go to our website at jetbrains.com/WebStorm. If you haven't already, please check out our WebStorm Twitter, our WebStorm blog, where you can find up-to-date news about releases and events, in addition to educational resources such as this webinar. And hell, while you're at it, go subscribe to Margaux and Dave for Twitter, and follow on Dave's blog and any other stuff that they're doing, and get Margaux to once she gets her code fight. Is that what you called it?
Fighting code. So basically, yeah. So you code robots that you make that fights like other coded robots. So basically, you're just fighting other people with code, but like in robot.
All right. So follow Margaux and you'll find out more about that. For this webinar, we'd like any of the feedback that you can give about the content, about the format, about why I should learn regular expressions. So please feel free to contact us on Twitter or in the after webinar survey. We look at that. Sasha looks at that and she tells me how I can do better next time. We'll email you a link to that survey in just a bit. That's it for us today. Came in roughly on time. thank you very much to both of our esteemed guests, and even more to our esteemed viewers who joined in, helped each other in the chat, gave us good things to talk about. Thanks for joining us. Hope you have a nice day.
Bye all.
Thank you. Bye.